Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, I need a motion to allow Commissioner Peters to participate via Zoom.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposes? Motion passes. Welcome, Commissioner Commissioner Peters. Is she on?
Is she on Zoom?
I'm not sure if she's on yet.
Okay.
Okay, well, when she gets on, she's welcome. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our awards and recognition. Greg Bracken, PSTA's Director of Transportation, will now introduce Mr. Thomas Waldo and recognize him for going above and beyond to help a customer in a time of significant medical needs. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. We're here this morning for recognition of Mr. Thomas Waldo. On April the 22nd, Thomas was doing his regular Route 14, and he noticed one of his passengers was in distress. He was moving, but he was non-responsive. Thomas was on his way to his break, but he changed his path and went ahead and assisted the passenger and got him the needed help he didn't request, but we provided for him. EMS was called and he was transported away. So we have a little proclamation for Thomas. Thank you for your quick thinking, compassion, and unwavering dedication to the passenger safety. Your prompt response and decision to request EMS demonstrate exceptional care and professionalism. In recognition of your outstanding performance, superior dedication, and positive attitude on the job, we'd like to recognize you as a stellar bus operator. Thank you for consistently delivering exceptional service to our riders, and we appreciate your hard work and dedication. And that was on April the 22nd. So, Mr. Waldo. Take a picture. Where are you going to go?
Big smiles, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations again, Mr. Waldo. Now it's time for public comment on the consent agenda items or items not on the agenda. I understand that some of you are here today to speak about the Cross Bay Ferry, but that item is an action item on the agenda a bit later, and you'll be called to speak at that time. If anyone is here to speak on any other topic, please fill out a green card and make sure the staff at the front table receives it. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which cards are received. Are there any members of the public here who wish to speak on any other item? Okay. Brad, I understand that you would like to go over what you and our SEIU union leaders have developed as a game plan for working with our school students riding PSTA buses. Brad?
Thank you, Chair Fig Sanders, and good morning, everybody. Good morning to the SEIU. Before I ask April Murphy, the lead rep for SEIU, and our Chief Operating Officer, James Bradford, to come up and say a few words, let me just go over what I emailed the PSA board members about last week, and the game plan that the union and James and I agreed to follow this summer. Last week, the union expressed concerns about behavior of some Pinellas County school students when riding PSA buses. While the Pinellas County school students are taking advantage of the UPass agreement with PSTA has with Pinellas County Schools, where the district pays PSTA for the students to ride using their school IDs. The union indicated that behavior had sometimes been very threatening to bus operators and other non-student riders. Since PSA did not have any record of passenger complaints or any reported incidents with students, James and I met with April and the union leaders last Friday. And we agreed to the following. One, PSDA would do some marketing or increased promotion of our existing rider code of conduct with new signs posted on every single bus. Two, the union would ride PSTA, would have a group of union members ride PSTA buses starting in June, riding the routes that service the high schools, and then again during the first couple weeks of the school year coming this August to train or to talk to students and to train them on how to properly ride a public transit bus. Three, I agreed to meet with Superintendent Kevin Hendricks and ask him for the district's help in working with all the schools to remind students of the rules while riding PSA buses, including the potential that if they don't follow the rules, that they can be banned from riding PSA buses. And then four, this summer, PSA is going to endeavor to starting with a few high schools and then expanding it to get students at the high schools using Flamingo fares, that we would distribute either Flamingo cards or an electronic way that they could get it on their phone so that they could tap when riding the bus, showing that they were a school student rather than just showing their ID badge. So that's what we've come up with. I think it's a good compromise plan. I think it'll address many of the concerns that were addressed, and I would just invite April and James. I don't see James, but if, there he is, he's behind the monitor, to say anything else. Come up. Yeah.
We've had, for the last 6 months, we've had lots of trouble with the kids. It's not just a little bit, it's a lot. They vape on our buses, they disrespect our drivers, they throw stuff at our drivers. And they have fights among themselves. It's just kids being kids, but they've taken it to a new level. And drivers are unsafe. So I'm happy Brad Miller and Bradford got with us Friday and agreed to start this Flamingo. We feel like it's the same thing as the St. Pete and when the free rides for the people that were going on the Sun Run. I won't call them bums, but whatever. And, you know, when they came and said, charge them and it will stop, it seemed to stop. So we're trying to see if, that's our goal, to see if they charge the kids, if the behavior will change. And, you know, that's it. That's all I have to say. I don't have a lot.
I was just going to say, I appreciate Brad working with us Friday, and I'd like to see this Flamingo program implemented with the UPass. I mean, it'll definitely help out with a lot of the fraud, the incidents, and everything else that we've been having on the bus. So, yeah, I'm definitely happy about that.
Good morning, and I'll keep it very short, and good morning to our PSC board members. You know, we have a good relationship with our union. I've known our union leaders for a long time. We have the heartbeat behind us. We have a lot of the men and women who day in and day out have to be out there on the roads. Safety is number one, paramount for us. But it's also making sure that everybody's in a safe, comfortable environment. So that includes our operators, but also includes our young people that are riding. And we want to make sure if there are times of trouble that we work it out, but if need be, then if they have to be let off the bus, it's in a safe place. So we want to work out all of these different things, but we want to make sure we are listening to our union leadership. I think we have great two-way communication, and when we run into issues, we usually work it out in the end. So as you can see behind me, there are all the bargaining members, all the PSA bus operators, men and women. Great respect for them. And when you have these voices come together, you have to listen. You need to listen. So I think we've outlined some great action plans, task actions that we're going to do over the summertime. And again, the goal is going to be making sure that everybody has a comfortable ride, that we keep safety paramount at all times. And then we work with our young folks to kind of put some type of order when they come on our vehicles. We want them to get to where they have to go, but we have to do so in the right way. So we're going to roll up our sleeves and do what we need to do to push forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Am I looking, no request to speak? Okay, thank you so much. So now we'll move,
Next.
you didn't light up, but,
You did it the last second.
okay, Commissioner McCann.
I'm just wondering if you could tell us real quick how the, using the Flamingo cards will help with this. Is it that we're not giving free fares anymore, or is it just for high school students? How does that play into it? Love to hear a little more.
Well, I think what we heard on Friday from some of the operators, I mean, of course, there's sort of discipline issues that are going on the bus sometimes when a lot of school kids get on the same bus, but, and it won't necessarily help with that. But it will, there is some cases where the kids don't show their IDs. They just jump on the bus, maybe in like a mob. And this will require them to tap. Everybody will, like everybody else is tapping, they will tap. And it'll be a little bit easier, I think, for the operator to kind of manage the crowd.
Yeah, I think you said it, and that's a great question. It just puts more controls in place. You know, like Brad said, with folks kind of hopping on and off and, one stop here or there, it just gives the operators a bit more control, a bit more guidance to make sure that we're checking for proper fare, proper IDs if you're one of the programs. So it just kind of allows, and you get the attention of the young folks when they get in, because they know you're paying attention, they know you're watching when you get in. We've gone to stores and you have a greeter, they say good morning. That shows that, hey, we are acknowledging that you are entering our place of business, you're entering the premises. So it's just one more measure, along with many that we're going to kind of work to see if we can kind of tighten up measures a little bit. Great question, though.
Thank you. Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. The Flamingo fares would also create a control for when someone is banned from using it, or when they lose this privilege, which is what it is, right?
Absolutely.
So that's another really important part of this. Also, I want to know if there's going to be zero tolerance. How many times does someone start vaping on a bus or throwing something at a driver before they are banned? Because the number I want to hear is one.
Yes.
One and done.
Well, and I look behind me, and hopefully by a show of hands, it's got to be a partnership. I know the operator, sometimes it puts you, excuse me, in a difficult, that's a fine for me, often on the microphone, puts you in a difficult situation because you don't want to have that confrontation. But when we started this out a few months ago, we said, give one warning. Give one warning. Hopefully, young folks settle down, and if not, call base, call for backup, find a safe place, because you have to set the tone. And if other young people are watching that and we stick to it and it's consistent, then we're hopefully, hopefully word gets out. But absolutely agree with you, and I think that's the idea. April, did you have a couple of comments on that?
Yeah, I said you must have saw my draft of the rules, because that's exactly what I got. It's a privilege, and a privilege can be taken away. And we want one warning. Well, we're going to teach them the rules. The first violation I have on there is a 30-day ban. Second is permanent ban. We have to be strict because you give the kids this much and they're going to take this much. So, and we have some bad kids. And the Flamingo's also going to stop a lot of these kids that don't go to school that just ride our bus because they don't show ID. So it's going to get a lot of the riffraff kids off our bus and stick to the school.
Right,
Yep,
thank you. I
yep.
did not see the draft, but I'm glad that we were
No, I know,
thinking
but I'm
along the
glad you
same
said it
lines
because that's what's on
there.
there.
And I like this approach because it addresses the real problem without putting a disadvantage on the students who are using this privilege appropriately.
Absolutely. It's not all the kids. It's
Right.
probably 70%. But, when we rode just for a few minutes, and, when these 8 kids got on from Northeast High School, there was 2 younger kids and there was a few elderly. And we actually had a reporter on with us. in 20 minutes, she got her earful. These kids were cussing, and the two little kids just sat there. They were scared. And then one of the passengers said, yeah, they harass us all the time, so I'm glad we're doing this. It's going to stop a lot of it. It really will, as long as we stick to the zero tolerance,
Yeah.
which we will.
Great. I look forward to hearing how things go through June, and how you might be tweaking this over the summer as you look forward to August. So I'll be asking how it's going.
Cool? Good.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no further requests to speak, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you, Ava, for everything that you do, because our number one priority is to ensure that our drivers are safe and that our riders also feel safe. So with that being said, thank you for bringing that to our attention, because we hadn't heard, which I can only imagine, dealing with children, what that may be. But now that we've had something that we are gladly going to help you implement, again, thank you, riders, for bringing that to our attention.
Some of them are big children.
I'm sure, but, at the end of the day, it's about, putting other riders and our drivers at risk, and we want to ensure that everyone has a pleasant experience. So now it's time for our consent agenda. Are there any items a board member wishes to pull?
Yes, 4B, please. And then, Madam Chair, 4C.
4C.
Sounds good.
Okay, pulling those items, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, can you please open the machine for voting?
I'm a yes, but I have no way to vote.
Same.
McCann,
Yes.
Hazelton,
Yes.
and is Peters on Zoom?
Commissioner Peters, are you on?
I don't think she has joined, but
Okay.
Okay, is that the final count?
she is? Okay. So we just need her.
Oh, she is on Zoom.
No, she's not.
Oh, she's not on Zoom. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, is that the final count? Okay, motion passes 13-0. Okay, now we're going to move to our committee updates.
So you want to cover the 4B?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to move on and handle that down. But okay, now we have item 4B, which is printing services, Amanda Beard and Al Burns.
I just have a quick question for the attorney before voting on this. I am employed and own stock in a company that has a two-way business relationship with PLS Print. Is that a conflict that I need to abstain from voting on this item?
So they're a client of the company that you are employed by?
Yeah, and we also do business with them. They're a vendor of ours.
Yeah, then you need to abstain from voting.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll need to fill out a form.
All right, I'll move approval of item 4B.
Okay, no other comments on 4B? Okay, can you please open the machine for voting?
Is it? There we go.
Okay.
That's right.
We should,
That's it.
that's right, we should be one short.
Oh, okay.
One, yes. Okay, so the motion passes 12-0 with one abstention. Now we're going to move on to item 4C. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be brief.
Just a quick question for either Al or Henry on this. I just wanted to point out that this tire contract is an exceptionally good deal. So good job, Al and Henry, for negotiating this. Just curious if this is this an increase over the expiring contract or a decrease?
Good morning, Board. Al Berger, highly motivated procurement director. It is a slight increase over the last contract, but it was competitive pricing compared to the other people that submitted, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is an exceptionally good deal, so I just did some quick math on a per tire cost, just swagging some numbers here, and you guys did really well on this.
That's Henry, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, move approval.
Second?
Okay. Can you please open the machine for voting? One more. Okay. The motion passes 13-0. Thank you. So now we're going to go to our committee updates, and first we're going to hear from our Chair of the Transit Riders Advisory Committee, TRAC, Ms. Gloria Lepid-Corrigan, about their recent meeting. Then Commissioner Reed will give us the local coordinating board report, and then finally we'll have Commissioner Albritton that will provide the Ford Pinellas report.
Good morning, everyone.
Let's see it all, Britt.
Good morning, Chair Fig Sanders and Mr. Miller and all the board members. The TRAC met on Zoom this last time on May 13th. The meeting featured a comprehensive overview of the PSTA waste disposal and cleaning operations as presented by Director of Maintenance Henry Lukasik. And that was very much tied with the fact that several people had noticed that, there were messes at some of the stops and so forth. And so finding out was very important to us. It was an eye-opening experience for us to see all the work, coordination, and planning that goes into keeping the entire system clean and operating. PSTA, as you know, has 4,000 stops, more than 600 shelters, and nearly 1,600 benches that require ongoing maintenance. And that's in addition to the 3 customer service centers, 5 major transfer hubs, and 2 park and ride lots. As I mentioned, the task is far more complex than most of us would have imagined. And Mr. Lukasik did a wonderful job of detailing the challenges, solutions, and procedures involved in maintaining this system. A recording of the TRAC meeting and his presentation is available on the meetings page of the PSTA website. And again, I highly recommend it if you're interested in seeing what goes into that. The committee then had a brief discussion regarding our 2025 initiatives, and as you know, one of those is to accompany each of you on a PSTA bus ride. We have reached out to some of you. I don't know that all of you have been contacted. If you haven't yet been contacted by a TRAC member to set up a ride, you should expect to hear from us in the near future. And again, we promise to keep the rides short and simple, but we think it's really important that you see on a day-to-day basis what kind of experience that is to plan a ride, get on a bus, go to one of those locations, see which rides are available to you. Anyway, the next meeting of the TRAC will be here at the PSTA auditorium on June 17th. And as always, we invite you to attend. You're welcome to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me let you.
Pressure button. There. You press it.
Your speaker's not coming on.
There it goes.
You got it.
There it goes.
Oh, you ready for the LCB?
Yes.
All right, very good. The Local Coordinating Board, LCB, met on May 20th in downtown Clearwater. The LCB meeting began with the approval of the grievance procedure and members, followed by approval of the existing agency agreements and rates. A presentation was given about the Florida Division of Blind Services. PSTA's Kim Dubach then gave a presentation about PSTA's role in monitoring the agencies under agreement with PSTA as the Community Transportation Coordinator. The next LCB meeting will take place on September 23rd at 9:15 a.m.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Albritton.
Yes. The Ford Pinellas meeting, which is the Planning Council and Metropolitan Planning Organization for Pinellas County, met on May 14th. The board received a presentation on State Road 580 corridor recommendations, and Jensen Hackett and Jeff Novateni of FDOT provided an update on the SR 580 corridor planning and concept development study by presenting an overview of the final report and reviewing the recommendations to enhance safety and multimodal accessibility along SR 580. The study examined the entire length of the corridor in the county from the intersection of alternate 19 and Dunedin to SR 584 in Oldsmar. Draft Priority 3 is pertaining to PSTA bus stops and suggests adding a bus bay, pull-off similar to what at Tyrone Mall, along SR 580 east of US 19 in front of Countryside Mall. This would allow buses to no longer block outer eastbound lane and bicycle lane. Chelsea Favero was presented a Staff Service Award. She received her 20-year service award for her service to Pinellas County. Chelsea is the MPO Division Manager at Ford Pinellas and is responsible for the overall Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO transportation functions of the agency. She started as an intern with the planning department and has been in the organization ever since, also serving as planner, procurement analyst, principal planner, and planning manager with Ford Pinellas. And I also shared the PSDA is hosting an industry day on June 2nd and June 3rd regarding the new intermodal center, and just reported that they'll show details of what the space will look like and a precursor to a call for contractors.
Okay, thank you for those reports. Now we will move on to our action items, and Brad and Darden Rice, PSTA's Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officers, will outline the proposed acceptance of a grant for passenger ferry boats. After Brad and Darden are finished, I'll call on the members of the public that wish to speak on this item next, and then take board member comments. Brad?
Good morning. Good morning. So, those of you here at our board meeting last month, remember at the end of the meeting, Commissioner Scott asked that we have a conversation this month about this idea of PSTA accepting this grant from HART for a federal grant for ferry boats. And I think we've definitely had that, and I want to thank all of you who have attended meetings or talked to me during our one-on-ones about this program and plan. And I think it's a lot better than where it was a month ago, as how we are planning this strategy to oversee the Cross Bay ferry service between St. Petersburg and Tampa. The action item before you today, and this was at the request of HART that PSTA take this action today, prior to their vote on Monday, June 2nd, is to accept the $4.8 million Federal Transit Administration ferry boat grant, contingent on two things. One, that HART approves the transfer on Monday. And two, and this was added by the Finance Committee of PSTA, who voted to recommend this to the PSTA board, the PSTA not provide any PSTA subsidies for the boat or for this service after this is running. That we will essentially be just an oversight agency, and that the subsidies, if any, will be provided by the cities of St. Petersburg and Tampa. Then, of course, that we would use the grant to purchase up to two new or used ferry boats using the grant, which is the only thing that we can do with that grant. So I'm just going to quickly run through how we got to this point, this program, and then I'm going to introduce Darden, who is going to kind of walk through some of the questions that you have asked or that have been asked at committee meetings, and you know, how we can have some discussion on this before we vote. And the Cross Bay Ferry has been running for 7 years, and in 2021, there was a plan by Hillsborough County to expand it to MacDill Air Force Base. And at that time, they applied for a federal grant and received a federal grant for $4.8 million for a ferry boat. In 2023, Hillsborough County decided not to go to MacDill Air Force Base for a number of reasons, and then so they canceled that project, and so therefore the grant is still available. It has not been used yet. It was actually received by HART, ultimately. Hillsborough County had been managing a contracted ferry operation for the last 5 years with this company called HMS. That contract was set to expire on September 30th, this coming fall. And about a year ago, I got a call from Hillsborough County and the city of St. Petersburg and Tampa saying, would PSTA do the procurement for the next contract? That they would run this contract and then PSTA would oversee the next contract, which is, PSTA does a lot of that kind of thing where we oversee contract operations. Unfortunately, the HMS company took the boat away, like they have done every year. That was not the plan for this year, but they took it away at the end of April. And so the Hillsborough County Commission just recently voted to cancel the contract about 4 months early. So there is no ferry running today because there is no boat and Hillsborough County canceled the contract. We still have a plan to issue an RFP this summer for a service, and then we'll issue that RFP, bring it to this board for approval to oversee the operations of a ferry starting as soon as possible. Then on May 1st, the same day that the ferry ended, I got a phone call from the CEO of HART saying that his board had asked for PSTA to take an action, that their board would like to see that PSTA would receive this grant if they are willing to transfer it. And so that's what we've been on. I presented this to the PSTA Legislative Committee and Executive Committee, and then the Finance and Planning Committee reviewed it, and the Finance Committee recommended it to you today. Again, the idea would be that PSTA's role in this would be to oversee a private contracted ferry operation. There is a goal by all the partners to change it from a seasonal ferry service to a year-round ferry service that would run year-round and lower the operating cost. The ferry that ran under HMS was very expensive to operate. One strategy to lower the cost is to use this grant to acquire up to 2 new or used ferry boats for the operation between St. Petersburg and Tampa. The value of having 2, of course, is you can increase the frequency, have one leaving Tampa, one leaving St. Petersburg at the same time, and they crisscross. That would increase ridership, and that would significantly lower the subsidies, or possibly even eliminate the subsidies someday. There's another benefit to PSTA and to public transportation generally, in that if PSTA oversees this contract, we can submit the ridership data to the federal government, along with all of our bus ridership data and our van pool ridership data, all of our transit data we submit every year to the federal government. And then that turns around and brings additional federal dollars in our formula grant to fund transit capital. Now, that would obviously be able to be used to support the ferry, but it could also be used to support our other needs, like buses and things like that, bus shelters. So the scenario that we've outlined here is as follows. Again, this summer, we would issue an RFP for a contracted operation of the ferry service, very similar to how we issued an RFP and we operated a contract operation in Clearwater with the Clearwater Ferry. We would include in that RFP a phase 1 where the contractor would have to identify ferry boats, bring them to PSTA or present them to PSTA for our approval, and then acquire those boats to operate. Once they got the boats here to the Tampa Bay, Phase 2 of the contract would kick in, and they would operate those boats for 5, or maybe 5, plus another option year for 5 more years. We've done a little bit of investigation after our Commissioner Reed and others asked more questions about these boats, or the particulars of them. The current boat that's in the picture that HMS Ferries owned, to buy that boat new, we understand would be more than the $4.8 million. And again, we have no interest in spending any more money than what the $4.8 million can afford. That's what leads me to believe that at least one of the 2 boats would have to be a used vessel. The other benefit to this action by using the federal grant, and PSD has already secured a commitment that we will not need to provide any match for these funds. We have secured a state credit match like we do for all of our buses, and that is actually saving the region $1.2 million. Again, the reason for the grant adding value is because when we issue the RFP for the operation, I think that will significantly increase competition from a lot more companies, including some that are in the room, I see, that are interested in providing the service with a cruise, and but then they don't necessarily have the ferry boats right now, but they can operate the service. This is very similar to what we did in Clearwater with the Clearwater Ferry, where the state of Florida purchased 2 boats for the Clearwater Ferry, and they are using those to operate the service. The Clearwater Ferry cost per hour that PSDA's contract has is $87 an hour. The Hillsborough County's contract with HMS was $450 an hour net. So much more, and part of that reason was that the company was from out of town, and so the crews and everything came from out of town, and that $450 number includes the cost of the boat, providing that vessel. By acquiring this grant and issuing this RFP for the service, I think we can lower the cost and improve the service. Another question was asked, can you kind of outline your scenario, Brad, in a little bit more detail? So that's what these tables that I've provided for you kind of show. On the left is the HMS current operation, and on the right is a scenario. Now, I can't guarantee any of these numbers, these are hypothetical, but this is sort of explaining how I think we can lower the cost. On the left, the actual cost in the HMS contract is $615 an hour, $615 an hour, and then they keep the fares and the concessions, so it nets to $450. But they operate 2,700 hours a year on that ferry. That costs the cities of St. Petersburg and Tampa and Hillsborough County $1.7 million a year. The ridership is between 60 and 70,000 annual rides. That collects fares and concessions. The net subsidy is 1.1 over a 10-year period. That would be $11 million to run the HMS Ferry the way they run it today. And that only provides three or four on the weekend trips, departures from St. Petersburg a day. 3 or 4 times a day it leaves St. Petersburg, and 3 or 4 times a day the boat leaves from Tampa to come to St. Petersburg. Under a lower cost scenario, we bid this out, we get a lower cost. I'm hoping $250. I would love for $87 an hour to be the number, but $250. We can double the amount of service. Again, having boats leave from Tampa and St. Petersburg at the same time. The cost is still lower at 1.3. The ridership goes up, the fares go up, the subsidy goes down in half. And then even if you count the cost of the boats, those are subsidized, federally funded boats, if you add that all together, that's still less over a 10-year period if we approve this grant today. And the service gets much better. Instead of every 3 to 4 hours, which is the way the service has been now, it would be every 1 to 2 hours that there would be a departure from St. Petersburg. With that, I'm going to ask Darden to come up and kind of walk through some scenarios, some questions that have been asked, and provide some comments on those.
Thank you, Brad. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Directors. I'm Darden Rice, Chief of Planning and Community Affairs Officer. First of all, thank you. The questions we're going to run through are some of the questions that we've received from many conversations with you, board members, and also other stakeholders in the community. The conversations with you, your insights, your oversight, your scrutiny has all gone towards making this a stronger proposal, so thank you. So question number one, what is the ridership and potential demand? Well, of course, this started off as a 2016 pilot. The ridership has had an overall trajectory with two notable exceptions, COVID being one, and then the St. Petersburg moving the dock back to the marina away from the Vinoy Basin. We know that going forward that it will be a big feature of this project to have the St. Pete ferry dock location moved back to the Vinoy Basin. We also know from ridership surveys that 70% of the riders are local and 30% are from out of town. Fun fact, the Cross Bay Ferry actually sells out on weekends frequently when there aren't Lightning games. And another fun fact, there's slightly more travelers from Tampa to St. Pete than the other way around. The Dietrich waterborne study did find that more than 83% of the survey respondents were either very likely or somewhat likely to use waterborne transit connecting the Tampa Bay area. Question number two. So we have this information about visitor ridership and connecting to events, and that's really great, but this doesn't seem like a pure commuter service. Well, it does run Thursday through Sunday, with most of those being evening and weekend hours, so of course it's not a commuter route. Yet, and those of you who are on Forward Pinellas and follow Forward Pinellas, you may be familiar with the fact that commuter trips only make up 16% of Tampa Bay traffic on our roadways. So comparing the ferry ridership to like 100% commuter service isn't exactly fair when we don't do that with our highways and roads. The success of this transit choice is to provide a unique transportation option that integrates two major urban centers, benefiting the economies on both sides of the bay. It provides connectivity, it enhances the region's identity, and it highlights the importance of reliable transportation options. People without cars can use the ferry. People who do own cars can avoid the bridge. They can avoid the bridge traffic slowdowns and avoid the time and money spent on parking. This service, when done right, is the foundation to growing waterborne transit for Pinellas County as well as the region, and it's the start to how we grow that part of the workforce pie. Question three, so what if HART doesn't approve this on June 2nd? So the show will go on. PSTA, we will still issue the RFP, but we will require the private vendor to provide the boats. This will increase the cost and subsidies that the municipalities will have to pay. The federal grant will lapse and go back to the pot of money for the FTA National Ferry Program. So another region of the country, with a ferry system, whether it's Seattle, Boston, or Charleston, they will scoop up these funds. These funds will not go back into a general pot of money that will be used to pay down the federal deficit. Question four. What if the FTA doesn't approve the transfer? Well, that's right. Hart just can't sign over the sponsorship of this grant and we just deposit the check in our account. This will go up the chain of command and down the chain of command with scrutiny every step of the way. If for some reason this doesn't go through, then there's no lasting impact to either Hart or PSTA for going through these steps. And we communicate with the FTA on a regular basis about this process, and we've done so since the very beginning. Question number 5. Is there increased liability to PSTA? PSTA's contracted operator will bear all responsibility for the ferry operation. It is written into the contract that you will see and review before approval. And this is just what we have always done with our many standard contracted services over the years, with Jolly Trolley, Transdev, Uber, Clearwater Ferry. We have extensive experience with this, and it's very similar to the way that your own home governments negotiate such standard third-party agreements with contractors. Question number 6, is there increased liability to taxpayers? Transferring this federal grant allows us to purchase boats for the contractor operator to lease, and that will lower cost and reduce local subsidies. What's more, PSTA can capture this ridership data and get credit for annual capital formula funds that comes from an existing federal program. And that is federal money, that's capital money that comes back to us. It can help strengthen our bus program. It can go towards any expenses dealing with anything capital with our operations. Question 7. What if the service is canceled or the boats somehow fail? PSTA can sell the boats. We can pay the proceeds to the federal government and incur no cost. The contractor is responsible for maintenance and holds the liability to keep the boat safe and in working condition according to Coast Guard regulations and standards. The annual capital funds captured from ridership establishes a cash flow which can be invested into, as I said before, our capital program or growing even more waterborne transit services. Lastly, question number 8. Is this worth it? Is this PSTA's core mission? Is this our why? PSTA's mission is to safely connect people to places. The intercity cross-bay ferry service provides such connectivity. It integrates 2 public transit systems in urban areas. It links communities. It reduces road traffic. It reduces the need for parking. And ferries are a transit choice that can bypass bottlenecks or bridges. Our buses can't travel over water, but ferries can. And we don't have to build additional roads, or widen bridges. And the ferry offers a compelling transit choice. And this is why FDOT loves ferries, by the way. It's a way to increase capacity without expanding roads or bridges. So don't get me wrong, $5 million is a lot in and of itself. But compared to the cost of building or expanding roadways, the $5 million investment towards waterborne transit, that is a real flex for how we can use that money to achieve greater ridership and greater choices to our commuters and to our citizens. The pilot service, customer surveys, and waterborne transit regional market demand studies show strong support. And the transfer of this grant demonstrates to the FTA, the granting agency, that the regional cooperation of Tampa Bay area is worth the continued investment in Tampa Bay, especially when the federal government investing agencies see that when we align in the same direction and show commitment to a shared vision together, this is how we achieve great transit projects. So thank you very much. This is an action item. And I believe, Madam Chair, that we go to public comment, and then staff is happy to take any questions before your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to public comment, we did receive 3 cards, and I'll call them in order that they were received. And once your name is called, we're going to ask that you please come to the podium and state your name, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Our first speaker is Mr. Jason Matthews.
Good morning. My name's Jason Mathis. I am the CEO of the St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership. We are a business association that represents the interests of property owners and business leaders in downtown St. Pete. I won't take 3 minutes. I'll just say this is a really good deal, and it would be a mistake not to take advantage of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christian Obenshan. Did I say that correctly?
No, but. Almost.
Most majority people don't.
Okay, well, how do you pronounce it? What is it?
It's Obenshan.
Obenshan. Thank you.
Penmanship is horrible. I'm a boat captain. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for all that you do for the city, for the county. Appreciate that. My name's Captain Christian Page Obenshan. I'm a 4th-generation native here. My kids were actually 5th generation in our family to graduate from St. Pete High School. I'm here today to talk to you, though, as a citizen of St. Petersburg. So I'm owner of Pier Dolphin Cruises in downtown St. Petersburg. And of course, I've been watching closely. Do I have to state my address or anything like that? No one stopped me. All right. But this is an opportunity that we should not pass up. I did look at some of the opportunity that we have in this regard. And if you guys give this grant, which you should, you guys are going to actually increase the culture of St. Petersburg and Tampa and going back and forth between each other. St. Pete, we have this walking initiative, and this is something that could help contribute to that as well. If you don't do the grant, you're going to end up with another Cross Bay Ferry, which is not locally owned and operated, and they're not taking in the culture of the 2 cities into account. And I think that would be a shame. You give the grant, and you have the opportunity for small businesses like me to input on the RFP, and you have the opportunity to call it the Crisscross Bay Ferry, according to what the presentation that Mr. Miller presented. But do it, get it going, let's keep this going. I have a group of friends that are boaters, and I don't think any of them have ever driven to a Lightning game in the last 5 to 10 years. The traffic's becoming horrible, the parking's becoming horrible, and this is a great solution to continue to access both cities for visitors as well as residents. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And Rachel, Mr. Obenshan didn't state his address at the pier, so we are going to acknowledge that. Our next speaker is Garrett Marple. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Garrett Marple, 4021 38th Avenue North. I'm here today just to talk about this amazing opportunity that we have as a region. This is, essentially a gift that we've been handed here. All we have to do is say yes. Myself and so many other homeowners and residents in the area constantly are asking, why doesn't Tampa Bay have more transit options? Why doesn't the region fund transit? And this is it. This is an opportunity to say yes to that, so that when someone encounters you on the street and says, well, we have so much traffic and we don't have any public transit, you can say, well, I voted yes. Yeah, this would be an amazing service. We could get to Lightning games. I could go see my friends in Tampa easily. I don't have to sit on the Howard Franklin for an hour. We have increased commuter options. The pros are endless, and the cons are very, very minimal. This is an easy win. So please do the right thing and fund transit.
Mr. Marco, can you please state your address?
4021 38th Avenue North.
Okay, I didn't check it off, but thank you so much for your comments. So before we go to board member comments, I did receive correspondence from the mayor's office. Unfortunately, he could not be here to speak personally, but I did get clearance to read this letter that was received. And it states, "Dear members of the PSTA Board of Directors, on behalf of the City of St. Petersburg, I am writing to express our support for the Pinellas Sun Coast Transit Authority's efforts to secure the transfer of a $4.9 million Federal Transit Administration passenger ferry grant from the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority to PSTA. This grant represents a unique and a time-sensitive opportunity to enhance regional transportation options, strengthen economic connectivity, and improve mobility for the residents and visitors throughout Tampa Bay, especially in St. Petersburg. Since 2016, the Crossberry Ferry service between downtown St. Petersburg and Tampa has successfully demonstrated the demand and viability of passenger ferry service in our region. The transfer of this federal grant to PSTA will provide essential funding for the purchase of a passenger ferry vessel for cross-bay transit service, a key investment that will enable the long-term success and expansion of ferry operations. When coupled with St. Petersburg efforts that will enable the success and expansion of the ferry operations. So when coupled with St. Petersburg's effort to provide appropriate dockage, a dedicated passenger ferry vessel will support expanded service options and increased competition for the forthcoming RFP, while maintaining this option for regional waterbound transportation. The City of St. Petersburg is committed to continued support of multimodal solutions that connect population and economic centers and strengthen the regional economy. We believe that the PSTA's leadership in securing this grant transfer aligns with these goals and reflect the community's vision for an integrated, resilient transportation network. We respectfully urge the PSTA Board of Directors to continue advancing this important initiative and to actively support the transfer of the FTA grant to PSTA. After hearing successfully requesting this funding from FTA, it would be unfortunate for the Reg On to turn down the opportunity and see it to be redirected somewhere else. We stand ready to assist in any way to help bring this transformative project to fruition for the benefit of the entire Tampa Bay region. Sincerely, Kenneth T. Welch, Mayor, City of St. Petersburg. So with that being said, do we have any questions for board members? Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was mentioned that for the operation or the operating costs, that the cities of St. Pete and Tampa would be paying those. What happened, or what would happen if, for instance, the city of Tampa decided to not do that and walked away from it? Would St. Pete be on the hook for everything?
Yes, well, essentially, yes. That's a great question, Commissioner, and one that a number of other board members have asked. So what I've done is, in your packet is a copy of a draft interlocal agreement with the cities of St. Petersburg and Tampa that is modeled very much after the similar agreement we have with City of Clearwater and Dunedin for that ferry service. PSA would only be obligated to operate the service as long as it was paid for, as long as the subsidy was paid for by Tampa and St. Pete. So the interlocal agreement, if a city backed out or didn't want to pay for it anymore, we would have no obligation to keep running the service. We could decide to increase the fares or try to make it up in some way, or just cancel the service.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's a lot that I like about ferry service. You don't have to build lanes, you don't have to maintain lane miles. There's a lot that I like about that. The concern that I have is that I don't want, I'm afraid that at some point in time in the future, PSTA is going to be asked to fund this. And that is my real big concern. And this interlocal agreement here only has a term for 1 year, which is, I think that should be, if we're going to do a 5 or a 10-year contract, I think that the funding partners should agree to do that for the term of that contract. Because I can tell you, as an at-large county commissioner, I would be extremely challenged to dedicate countywide tax dollars to a service that benefits only 2 zip codes, and one of them isn't in Pinellas County. So, I mean, I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of St. Pete and the city of Tampa wanting to fund this service. I think it's great if they want to do that, but it would be very, very difficult to justify to anybody that lives outside of downtown St. Petersburg that this is a good use of their tax dollars, especially when you look at, let's say, our Route 52, that carries almost 100,000 passengers a month, which benefits, a large portion of geography of Pinellas County, versus this is anticipated to maybe carry 100,000 passengers a year. So, I mean, I really like the concept of it. A lot of things I really do like about it. I'm just really concerned that this interlocal agreement is only for 1 year, and I would like to see that longer.
Yeah,
So, that's my.
the agreement that we have with the city of Clearwater and Dunedin is this agreement, but it is evergreen, or it renews only, and then only to the availability of funds. Only, in the case of the Clearwater Ferry, we have a FDOT, a 3-year FDOT grant for that, and that is how long the funding and the exhibit with the funding lasts. I agree with you. When I read it, I felt like we would be more specific in this situation, that it would exactly tie to the length of the contract.
Yeah, that would be, because, I mean, it sounds, wonderful to say, well, we'll just sell the boat, but that reality is a lot more complicated than just saying we're going to sell the boat. Because the reality is that's not going to happen. Once it's there and it's operating, then it becomes a community asset, and that's my concern. If there's any mushiness in the funding commitment of the partners, that PSTA gets brought into that at some point in the future. So, and Brad, one other quick thing, could you explain the toll credits? Because there's 1.2 million. So does that mean the total cost of the boat is does it give us availability of $6 million, or?
Well, no.
How does that work? So.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't say I totally understand how the state of Florida does this, but all federal grants in Florida can be, if approved by FDOT, matched with a credit. The federal government will accept these things called toll revenue credits that are not real money. They are just a credit against the toll revenues that the state DOT collects all across the state. You can request to FDOT and they approve, and in case of this ferry boat, they have approved it already, that they would allow for toll revenue credits to be used for this. So it's not real money. It's not the $1.2 million of real money. It's $1.2 million of credit. So the only real money we have to purchase boats is the $4.8 million.
Okay. Got it. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Albritton.
Okay, thank you. I'm a member of the Fort Pinellas Waterborne Transportation Committee, and we've been talking about this for over 6 years, I think. The study of a vibrant system of ferries from Clearwater all the way to St. Petersburg, and Clearwater's already, we already started that. We've got a interlocal agreement with PSTA to run that, including Dunedin. And, the other bookend was the Cross Bay Ferry. And, I think this falls right into what we've always planned is a service that would run from St. Pete to Tampa other than what we had before. You know, when you look at this, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a long-term plan. And it's going to take a lot of talk over the years to get other municipalities on these beach communities to fall in to do the same thing Clearwater is done. But, you know, the whole idea was to have a great service between the out islands all the way down, which is a necklace chain of islands all the way down to Tampa Bay and then back up to St. Petersburg. So I see this as a great start, and you know, I think it'll be a successful thing, but it'll be something that we'll be talking about for years to come on this to make it really happen. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner DeBreezy.
Thank you. Brad, the figures you had on the presentation are based on two boats regarding the operating cost. And I think it was Commissioner Scott that mentioned that some doubt about possibly being able to get the two boats with the 4.8 million. And not knowing anything about buying boats, that may or may not happen. Hopefully it's able to get two.
Right.
But if it's only able to get one, that obviously changes the operating figures. It changes the amount of subsidy that the cities would have to provide. So my concern is that, you know, we potentially could be less successful if we're only able to get one boat. I don't know if we've talked with potential operators prior to an RFP coming out about their thoughts about the cost figures. If we haven't, I think that might be interesting feedback to receive. For them, assuming all the costs of only having one boat, and also interrupts the idea of having the crisscrossing and decreased waiting times if we're only able to get one boat. So that's my concern. I like the idea of it, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get two boats with the 4.8 million. I hope we can, but if we can't, then it does change the economics of this considerably.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and I agree. That's why, at least my thought is to issue an RFP that would be evaluated. That would be a key evaluation is the contractor that we recommend would have large networks and ability to find a Buy America compliant ferry vessel, new or used, all within the $4.8 million and not a penny more. In the case that you're describing, if we're for some reason not able to find two boats, we can only find one, we would start with that. We would operate that within our available subsidies, only from Tampa and St. Petersburg, and then again, we would be able to generate some dollars, some capital dollars from the feds in the future that maybe could acquire a second boat. It would just take longer. You're right, the subsidies would be higher. That would be up to Tampa and St. Pete only to provide. We would not provide any service that cost PSA any funding. But I've had a lot of conversations with private operators, Captain Christian, who spoke earlier, and others, and I'm fairly optimistic, at least they're optimistic, that they can find compliant ferries.
You done? Okay. Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to those who came to speak today, and to the many, many people who sent us emails advocating for this to happen. One thing I wanted to point out about those emails that I found interesting was looking at the addresses. Most of the people gave their address, either their city or their neighborhood or their actual address. And it was great to see that people from Largo, people from Pinellas Park, people from Tampa even, were writing to us and saying, this is what we want. So it wasn't concentrated to one neighborhood, because, when you get a lot of the same email, you think, okay, it's like one neighborhood. And it wasn't. So I just wanted to point that out. The city of St. Petersburg has budgeted funds in the proposed FY26 budget, over $300,000 that is specifically going to be allocated for the ferry service. We don't have specifics on that yet. What we'd like to do is put it into the temporary dock, which we're working on, but this can also be used for any, for startup needs or any other contributions that the city has to make. The city of St. Petersburg, and I believe the city of Tampa, are very committed to this. And we have been, paying into it every year through the interlocal agreement, and we have seen the popularity increase. We've been on track to go to that year-round service that everyone's been asking for, that uses the ferry and enjoys the ferry. And we're almost there. Now, I'm seeing this as an opportunity to get back on track and move that forward. There was a question about one ferry versus two. The first step would be, even with one, just going to year-round service is going to be progress. Getting two is like next level. That's the game changer for us. So hopefully we can get there. And I believe when it comes to making sure that we have the funding, that we have the ability to purchase that second ferry, if there is a gap, you've heard from the city of St. Petersburg, the mayor, city council members. We know that the city of Tampa is supportive of this, and they're seeing the success from it. We heard from the CEO of the St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership, and we know that, I know that the the Downtown Tampa Partnership, our counterpart over there, they're seeing success from it too. The St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership represents a lot of our private sector, and the private sector that benefits greatly from services like this and better modes of transportation. So I think that if we do have a gap, we're going to find a way with commitments from the city of Tampa, the city of St. Petersburg, and potentially the private sector to make sure that this happens, because these are the stakeholders that see the benefit of this. I wanted to point out that about the term of this, I too think that a year is not enough. That just barely gets you going, and then you've got to go back to the table again. And I believe that if we did a 5-year agreement for this round, I think that would be good. And then, hey, if we find that this is wildly successful, we've lowered the cost so that now we're pulling in good revenue. I think this could be an excellent revenue source. Then maybe we look at 10. I'm not sure that 10 would be good to start with, but I'm very supportive of 5 if we can get everyone on board with that. So I hope that that will be taken into consideration. Finally, going this route rather than having to move forward to purchase one ferry on our own, or the cities on our own, it really reduces the opportunities for our local businesses to get involved and be a part of this. We heard from Captain Christian earlier, does a wonderful job. We have our partners who operate the ferries that we have in place right now. These are local businesses, and our partnerships with them and the opportunity that we're giving them to work with us is helping put food on their table. It's helping our local economy. This is the best way forward in so many ways, and I'm very supportive of this, and I'm looking forward to my vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scherer.
Chair. Like Commissioner Scott, I'm very leery of subsidizing any transportation like this. I wouldn't even think about voting to approve it, which is specifically why you see that condition in the action item. On the Finance Committee, I requested that we not provide any subsidies for the boats, but I also conditioned it on we wouldn't even buy the boat unless we had contracts in place to guarantee that we're not going to be subsidizing this project. So going forward, I just want you to know that that was a condition of mine. We will not subsidize it, and we will have contracts in place with operators and with stakeholders who want to subsidize the project. And if we don't have those guarantees in place, we should not even purchase the boat. So I say that we can, my idea is we move forward accepting the grant, but we make sure that we do not approve any purchase of a boat until we have guaranteed contracts in place with the stakeholders who might want to subsidize City, Tampa, and St. Pete, and we have good, solid, multi-year contracts in place with the operators. And so that's where I am on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Petrilla.
Thank you, Chair.
So recognizing that I'm still in commission meetings, that this morning's action is just whether we want to move forward with the grant or not. I don't really have any objections to the grant. It's just that I think we need to set the stage for what happens at some point down the future when these contracts come back. And so having looked at the presentation, how it's kind of morphed over the last 3 or 4 times I've seen this presentation, I just have a couple of comments on that. First, even as for Pinellas shows, this is not a must-have route, but rather this is a nice-to-have route. And as such, I will echo what Commissioner Scheer said. This shouldn't cost PSTA or the taxpayers of Pinellas, it shouldn't cost us a penny. But I would take it further because, there should be a benefit, because this is not a must-have. No one is taking this to work or because they need transportation, they don't have any other way. And so we should look at a way that, we're collecting fares that actually come back to PSTA and subsidize that huge deficit that we have every year. Because again, this is, we're looking at tourists, we're looking at discretionary travel, so we should be taking advantage of that. Then going back to the interlocal agreement, at the very least, it should mirror the boat contracts. If the boat contract is for 5 years, then the interlocal agreement should be for 5 years as well. The last thing we want is for PSTA to be on the hook after 1 year, and we still have a 4-year contract left with the vendor. I have a challenge with the numbers, because I've heard this now several times, that this is a good business and it's been successful, and yet the vendor that was running the service pulled out because it clearly was not successful and it wasn't profitable for them, or for whatever reason, they could not maintain the service. And so, if it was good business, then we should be receiving money back rather than having to subsidize it. And even if PSTA, and look, St. Pete can do with their money what they want, Tampa can do with their money what they want, that's on those cities and those commissions. So if they want to subsidize it, by all means. I just keep hearing the same thing, it's good business, it's been successful, and yet the numbers don't really seem to bear that out, and the actions of the vendors speak louder. And so I understand that if we provide the boat, if we charge them $1 for the boat, which was not in this presentation, but that was previously mentioned, so just so everyone understands, the proposal was that we do not charge the provider anything for leasing the ferry from us but $1 a year, and I think that should be a higher number. If we're taking the administrative cost, right, there's going to be cost to PSTA for staff time, for administrative time, for, organizing and running the service, for collecting fares, for all the things that we normally do. Obviously, there's scale here that we can plug into what we're already doing, and that's great, but there is still a cost to us. Now, we're going to offset that some with the federal money that we're getting back, and that's great. And I've said this in previous meetings, that if the whole purpose of this is for PSTA to get an additional $1 million from the feds, I'm for it. This is great, right? If we're in the net positive by $1 million, and we're getting a service that people seem to want and enjoy, then that's fine. But I think we should just, and I'm glad to see that in this presentation that actually was a little bit more prominent to show, the taxpayers of Pinellas, here's one of the reasons that we're doing it, because there is a significant $1 million benefit, that comes back to us that we can use, for operating. And then the last, this is a question I think we did answer in one of the committees, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands what happens if we sell the boats. If we sell the boats, where does that money go to? Because it does not stay with PSTA, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The $4.8 million would be used to buy the boats, and then if we ever sold the boats, we would give that money back to the feds.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging my comments.
But, Mayor, to your comment, I think that's exactly right. There is a net benefit to the bus service of PSTA. By accepting this grant, by providing this service, we can generate $1 million a year in capital dollars that can benefit the bus system. And to your point about why the contractor over in Hillsborough decided to leave early, I have no idea for the real reason, but I know that is very common. It's happened on PSTA contracts for our paratransit, where the contract is coming toward the end, and they're either told directly or they don't think they have a chance of winning the next contract, they bail. And I think that's what happened. I think they were told by Hillsborough County that they were probably not going to win the next contract, and they decided to take their boat up to Cape Cod again. That's what I understand what happened, but that is pretty common at the end of contract. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad, in the possible scenarios here where you're laying out the numbers, the cost per hour of $250, is that per boat or is it 120? Is that two boats operating? I guess I'm trying to figure out, is that $125 per hour?
That's per hour,
boat?
per ferry hour. That's
Okay.
per hour.
Okay, got it. All right.
Just like the Clearwater Ferry.
Okay, because that's $87 per hour, and they're operating two boats, so it's.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, got it, okay.
Yeah.
And then my next question is for our St. Pete City Council members. So Gina, you had mentioned that in the fiscal year 26 budget, there was 300,000, I think you said?
306, to be exact.
306? Is that historically been the number, or is that higher or lower, or? so?
Let you speak.
I think that's better the same.
We can't have two mics going for whatever reason. I'm hitting the button and you're not turning.
Do I
Yeah, that's because I'm
Do I need-
not up, so it's letting other people's.
I turned mine off.
Keep going again.
Keep going.
Press it again.
I'm pushing.
Commissioner Reed is still lit up.
No, he's not lit up.
Can I just borrow your mic?
There you go. Now you're in.
Hey. I'm not sure. I think in the past, what we've done is the part that we pay in for the interlocal, and then any, call it contingencies. I mean, there are some small costs that are incurred with getting the ferry dock ready. Right now, we've been operating with a temporary dock that is at the port right now, or it was. Once we start this service again, we're working now on a temporary dock where it used to be in the Vinoy Basin, and that is where it would operate from until we have the permanent dock that will be built on the pier, kind of next, near the St. Petersburg Museum of History and where the Eckelmann sculpture used to be pre-storm. So it'll be there, which is actually where the original ferry dock was. So very close to that. So we're saving back some money for anything just in case we need to help get this going in FY '26. But we're hoping we don't need to so that we can put the money towards the temporary dock. I hope that makes sense, and I do hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that very much. And I would be comfortable moving forward with this on the condition that the city of St. Pete and the city of Clearwater enter into, at least a 5-year funding agreement. I would
You
be.
mean Tampa?
I'm sorry, city of Tampa and city of St. Pete.
Yeah.
Right. If they would move forward with a 5-year funding agreement, I would be totally comfortable moving forward.
Thanks. I do like the idea of a St. Pete to Clearwater ferry. I don't know about Commissioner Albritton, but.
Well, maybe, maybe that's,
I
maybe that's
think-
in the future, but.
Well, that's next.
Right,
First
right.
things first, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if we're ready for a motion or not, but I'll just throw this out there for consideration. I'd make a motion to approve the grant transfer of 4.8 million, the ferry boat grant from HART to PSTA, contingent on the execution of a 5-year agreement with the city of St. Petersburg and Tampa to fund any costs not covered by fares.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, we still have speakers. Commissioner Reed.
Madam Chair, I think it just bears repeating, in the Finance Committee and the Executive Committee, we went over some things, and Brad, maybe you can clarify that if the FTA money that we get for ridership, using the current ridership of the Cross Bay Ferry numbers, would it come to about $1 million a year based off current numbers, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So I think that bears, thought. If we get this increase, we increase the federal transit dollars, so just wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because if the ridership goes up and we can provide if we can get 2 boats and provide more service, then that would be more, it would be more than $1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McCann.
Hi, thank you. Okay, I like this. One of the reasons I like it is because we're giving people options for how to get around. One of the reasons I like doing that is because it creates a transportation system that's more resilient. Just like you don't want to have all of your investments in one stock. You don't want to eat the same thing for breakfast every day. Well, as long as it's part of a healthy, diversified breakfast, right? You don't want to eat bacon every day for breakfast. You also don't want to transport. You might want to, but you'll pay for it in the long run. Just like if we have a transportation system that forces people to drive for every trip, we're really putting all of our eggs in one basket. And we learned that after the storms where people's cars were flooded and they were dead in the water if they lived in an area that was not served by transit. Now, this ferry is not going to solve that. But I think a lot of the conversation today has been about incremental improvements and getting towards a place where people have options and how to get around. I fully support that. Just a couple other things to point out. I got a letter from the Tampa Bay Area Chamber supporting this. Didn't see that in the packet. I just wanted to point out that that was out there. Maybe it didn't make it to staff when they were putting together the agenda. Last point I'll make is just that we have a real double standard about what we subsidize in terms of transportation here. There's a lot of sentiment that we shouldn't subsidize public transportation that's recreational, yet we subsidize all kinds of car traffic that's recreational. Okay, we saw only 16% of car traffic is people getting to work. Why do we subsidize that and not public transportation that's recreational? Well, if you total up all the subsidies for cars, they're huge. I would just encourage people to factor that into their analysis when they're looking at an issue like this. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. I just want to also contribute to the conversation. Thank you, first of all, for everyone and your comments in regards to this, because this is really a monumental initiative that we're taking on in improving our multi-mobile options for our constituents. And again, Commissioner McCann definitely hit on that 16% of this is for commuting purposes. With us, especially a lot of us being coastal cities and the municipalities, we depend a whole lot on those that are visiting our areas, our tourist dollars that we use for many, many things in regards to providing a quality of life for our citizens. So I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the consideration. I appreciate the things that we would like to see happen in regards to this. And let us not forget, we still have a whole RFP process. So, there are some of these things that we can definitely include in those RFPs. And I thank Commissioner Scott for, the term of this, because I do agree, a year is not long enough. But with us having this conversation, it shows your consideration for wanting to become that multi-mobile region that would definitely take our cities to the next level and provide that go-to place for our tourists, which is something that I think that we've always strived to actually do, to bring people here, to bring those dollars. To accompany the other options that we have to offer for entertainment. So seeing that we have a motion and a second for this, can I please ask you to open the machine for voting?
Yay.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that we voted, the motion passes 13-0. Thank you, everyone, for your contribution on this, and I look forward to future conversations. So next, now, we will move to our information items. Debbie Leos, our PSTA's Chief Financial Officer, will go over two presentations covering PSTA's proposed capital budget, and then followed by a preliminary look at PSTA's operational budget. Hi, Ms. Debbie, how are you?
Well, good morning. After that rousing discussion, that was great, and that's something we can now consider into our budget process, assuming Hart approves. But I'm going to start out this morning. I've got two presentations, kind of getting us ready for the board workshop this Friday on May 30th. And this was presented to both the Finance and Planning Committee meetings. We're going to start out with the Capital Improvement Program, better known as the CIP. And I'm going to go through some of the highlights and why we do multi-year budgeting on the capital side. First of all, it gives us a long-term perspective. It allows us the opportunity to work towards getting grants that sometimes take several years to get for large, important projects. Because we want to make the best use of the resources we have, just like we spoke about with the ferry, saving money with toll revenue credits. In our capital budget, most of the projects, really almost all the projects, have to do with replacement, whether it's replacement of buses, replacement of facilities. It is driven by what we call our Transit Asset Management Plan, or TAMS plan, which is required by FTA, but is something we've done here for a long time. So we take a look at what needs to be replaced, we program it out over a 5-year period, and work towards getting that funded. Every year, we update that 5-year plan, and we present it back to the board. Now, the capital improvement program of $101 million for next fiscal year, for fiscal year 26, is made up of two primary categories. One is buses, and the other is on the facilities. The majority of that relates to starting the construction of the Clearwater Station. The important thing to note is out of that $101 million, 99% of it is grant funded. So that's excellent from my point of view. Let's start with the buses. We have in there for $54.5 million, and this is for the receipt of the buses that have already been under a purchase order, and we're just receiving them in. This is for our hybrid and our electric buses. The good news is we honestly don't have to talk about buses for the next couple years, because this will carry us forward until we start looking out into 28, 29 for more replacement buses. The Clearwater Station, I have great news. We got 100% design very early this morning on the Clearwater Station. So we'll be going forward with the procurement on the construction for that. And we'll be starting the construction early this fall and completing it hopefully in early 2027. Now, here at PSTA, we are in need of a roof replacement. I know that because I've put a few buckets out in the hallway over time near my office. And included with the roof replacement, we're looking to put solar panels on top of the roof. Now, what this will do is not only reduce our operating costs, our electric bills will go down as we sell electricity back to the grid, but in times of need for resiliency, when there are power outages, we will be able to actually take from the solar panels and plug into 6 depot chargers for our buses. So it's definitely a resiliency effort. The other piece of this is to replace generators. And we've got $5 million programmed for that. This will allow us to be able to have generators to function not only for the maintenance building, but also for this building. That is very important for our servers that we do house here. The other piece, very similar to the ferry, is the van pool service. We took over the van pool service in January of 2024 from T-BARTA that is no longer in functioning. So this is paid for 100% by federal funds. We have put those dollars or miles and hours into our NTD, National Transit Database report, and it is generating $2.4 million of federal grants coming back to us. So we'll be spending 1.4 and getting $2.4 million. Anything above and beyond what we need for the van pool services, again, goes back into our buses. We also have money in the budget for our shelters and other amenities, about $1.2 million, as well as putting in charging at, electric charging at Grand Central in St. Pete and right out here at the lay-by. And those are all grant funded. Now, the enhanced rider experience. We want to improve our ridership, increase our ridership. We want it to make as easy as possible for people to ride our buses and our services. We were awarded through USDOT $1 million called a SMART grant. And this SMART grant will allow us to do the software to be able to have our veterans and our seniors be able to go in through logon.gov at home and be able to register and make, prove that they're a senior or a veteran and not have to go to our customer service centers. We do a lot with data here. We've been a data-driven organization for a long time, but we're taking it to a new level. You've all heard Devin Deal present at various committees. That's just on one piece of data we use for ridership. What we want to do is we've programmed money into the CIP budget for a phase 1 to take a look at building a centralized solution for our data so that we may be able to easily and quickly pull data to make those decisions. The other piece that's in our capital budget is our Transit Development Plan, TDP. This is done every 5 years, and it does a look forward for about a 10-year period. We've put $100,000 into the budget for this. However, with our community-connected bus network just being completed, I'm very hopeful we will be able to update this at a much lower cost. At the board workshop, we're going to be talking at one of the tables about looking at future planning and how we can use public transportation in the development of Pinellas County. Now, our next steps. In June, between the Finance and the Planning Committee meeting, we're going to hold a public hearing on what's called a program of projects. This is all of our FTA funding that we get in and how we anticipate spending it over the next coming years. So that's what's coming up in June. Based on the approval of the program of projects, we will put in for our grant applications that are at, from the formula side, $25.3 million. So I'm going to take a moment here and move on to the operating budget. Now, at the board workshop, we're going to again come at a high level and have you all help us formulate the details of what's going to be not only in fiscal 26, but strategically going forward. So I know a lot of you, Commissioner Scherer, would like to get a lot of detail on the budget. It will be forthcoming in June. So I want to take a look at the operating budget from a couple different viewpoints. One is we operate 13 cost centers here, and we also have a revenue division. But let's take a look at the operating divisions, because when I want to save money, while I look at everything, I'm going to make the biggest impact on our largest cost centers. Those are transportation, mobility, and fleet maintenance. So let's take a look at some of the cost centers that we have, or all of them actually. Transportation is run by our Chief Operating Officer, James Bradford, who you heard from this morning. Out of the fiscal '25 budget, that represented $54.2 million out of about $123 million. Included in there are bus operators and our bus operations, outsourced services like Jolly Trolley, our new ferry services, as well as our customer service representatives and safety, security, and training. Coming in second is our maintenance division, the nuts and bolts of the organization. We have an award-winning team with our maintenance division. And I'm very proud of them, and I'm also very proud of the fact that PSTA has a performance-based contract for our maintenance crew to be able to increase their salaries. Then we have the mobility division. This is our paratransit service, this is our biggest one with Paratransit Access, as well as Mobility on Demand. And you can see on the chart, we run a lot of other services through this division, including our new grouper service, which is being very successful, and that also came out of last year's workshop with the board. In our IT department run by Kessia Harris, this is where all of our software and hardware sit. We also look at a lot of innovations. This is where our data is, and we are constantly moving forward with changing how we do things. Need I say more? It's the finance division. So we handle all the money that comes in, the investments, the accounting, the grants. We also have a risk department. The risk department handles all of our insurances and our claims, which is actually a separate division where those costs are housed. And then we have communications with Amanda Baird. In here, we have our advertising, obviously communications, public relations, and our UPass program. So the communications department is an important piece of improving our revenue side as well. And then we have planning and community affairs. This is where we have our long-term vision as well as our scheduling department. They help us with the grant writing, obviously very successful with all the discretionary grants we have run, and our community affairs. And that is run by our chief, planning and community affairs officer, Darden Rice. Then we have human resources. Human resources obviously is bringing talent to PSTA and keeping the talent through development and training, and they also house our benefits. Project Management Office, PMO, is our smallest division who handles a lot of our largest projects, such as the Clearwater Station, as well as our shelters and other amenities. So that's one way of looking at the budget, is looking at it from our cost center standpoint. The other is shifting it around and looking at our cost center elements. Now, our largest pieces in our budget are our salaries, fringes, as well as privatized transportation, making up in total between those three about 76% of our budget. If you take a look at the salaries and fringe benefits, you are at about 59% of our budget. That is extremely cost-effective compared to other transit agencies. Just even looking across the bay at Hart, they are at about 73% of their budget, where we are at 59%. Very lean, very mean. What I did is I also took a look at historically over the last 4 years. What are some of the cost elements that have gone up the most? And I picked 4 years because of COVID. 2020 was a unique year, as we all know, so I discounted that. What went up significantly over that time period was our insurance. We had significant increases in premiums, as I'm sure all of you have seen, both personally and in your businesses. Our transportation costs went up. Jolly Trolley service contract was new, and we're going to be taking a new look at that as well to see if there's any things we can change in there to reduce costs, as well as our new union contracts. We've talked a lot about mobility, our access on demand and mobility on demand. That has gone up significantly due to ridership. And then, of course, what isn't technology today? Our buses they're basically computers on wheels. A lot of other software we use, that has gone up by 32% over the last 4 years. Now, to pay for all the costs on our revenue side, our biggest revenue element is our property tax, our ad valorem, making up about 67% of the revenues. Our state and federal grants represent about 21%, and I'm actually trying to wean us off of that with our CARES funds that came in. We still have a little bit left of that, but while some transit agencies around the country have had to cut service drastically, we have been weaning ourselves off of it over the last few years so as not to impact our customer service. So we also have passenger fares. That's a focus to try to increase the fare revenue, as well as miscellaneous advertising, interest income, et cetera. Presented this 2 weeks ago. We have some early numbers on the budget, which we're working to bring to a balanced budget. So our goal is to obviously have revenues equal or exceed expenses. We're constantly working over these next few weeks of bringing that down to a balanced budget, and that's where I hope to get some great ideas from you all as well. So at the workshop, it's going to be fun. We did this last year. We're going to have 4 tables. We're going to be talking about different areas such as ridership enhancement, cost containment, improving revenues, long-term planning. We're going to be looking at some personas of people who ride our system and how we impact people's daily lives. Now, this last slide, as Brad said, it looks like alphabet soup sometimes, but some of you who've been on the board for a while know that we are a member of the American Bus Benchmarking Group, the ABBG. We compare ourselves on many, many different areas. What I just want to assure you is we will always and continually look at cost containment. And on here where you see the arrow is you see an SP below it. That stands for us here at PSTA. This is completely confidential for all the other transit agencies, but we are consistently at the very end of the line, which is good, which means we are very, very cost efficient compared to our other agencies across the entire country. So with that, I will take any questions.
Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much, Debbie, for that informative presentation. Back on the CIP, I had a couple questions there.
Yes.
How much longer do we have on this VW settlement grant?
As we get buses in, we actually have to drill holes for people who don't know in the V-settlement on the engines of the buses coming out. That we should probably get all of that money back in within probably a year's time from now. And that's
Okay.
going right back into paying for those other buses coming in.
So when we get to the fiscal year '27 budget, that money will be gone?
It'll be gone by then.
Yeah.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it, okay. Okay. On the roof replacement, on the solar panels, who's paying for that? Is that grant funded?
That
or-
is all grant funded.
Okay, because on that stuff, I just want to make sure we're getting a return on investment
Yeah.
for it, because
And
there's a footprint that you got to have to be able to get recover the cost before you have to replace it, and I just want to make sure we've done that calculation.
Now, interestingly enough, we are looking at getting tax credits, energy tax credits for that.
Okay.
So it's like for every electric or hybrid bus that we have, and I don't know all the parameters of when they have to have been purchased yet, but we will get $30,000 back for each bus, and we will get a 30% credit on solar panels.
Okay.
That's actual cash check coming back in.
Okay, all right, great.
But we are doing the return on investment calculation on that and trying to do the roof at the same time.
Right.
To save money.
Yeah, okay. And then my last question, on the data warehousing, can you explain that a little bit? Are we building our own data center, or what is that?
Well, we'll be taking a look at, we have so many data fields across all these different softwares that we're going to try to combine it all and see what we've got to basically come up with a menu of that to put into a data warehouse that either, does it make sense for us to have somebody in-house pulling the data and creating, all the different reports that you can basically type in. These are the 6 data fields I want to answer a question, and within minutes, come back with an answer. Or hours, depending. But it'll be a very quick turnaround on the data analysis that we do. And there are companies out there that could do it for us. Obviously, it's a longer process. If you're outsourcing them, probably more expensive. And we've got some wonderful data people here.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further requests to speak or questions, thank you, Debbie, for your
you're very welcome.
presentation. Now we will move on to our reports and correspondence and our future meeting dates. Brad, do you want to
Thank you.
update us on with our reports in the packet?
First, I feel I want to applaud Debbie. We applauded the ferry, so I know you guys are so excited to hear the budget presentation. Budget, yes. How exciting. I hope you guys are excited for the workshop. I am super excited. Yeah, no. Thank you, Chair. In your packet are all of the ridership reports for the month of March. And as always, March is our highest ridership month of the year because of spring break here in Pinellas County. This March was slightly lower than last year, which I think was a record. And if you look at the ridership by route report that's in your packet, or the PowerPoint summary that we presented to the Finance Committee, you can see pretty clearly that the drop in ridership, the slight drop, was entirely a result of the hurricanes last fall, keeping some businesses and hotels along the beach and in Gulfport. The routes that go down to Gulfport were a little bit down because the businesses are still closed. The good news is that our new tourist services, the Clearwater Ferry and the Grouper Airport Shuttle services, both had really great spring break periods. And then I understand that even lately, in the month of May, which is a little bit after the peak of spring break, both the ferry coming back into service and then the grouper services continue to be very strong, the grouper service keeps growing in ridership. So my last few comments are sort of organized from the bad news first and then moving more positive. So some very sad news to report. One of our great track committee members, Mr. Sebastian Zimbardo, died 2 weeks ago. And he was a very great track member, great to work with. Earlier this year, I know, all of our track committee members ride the bus regularly, and my family and I were riding on the Suncoast Beach trolley along the beach, and Sebastian was on the bus. And he was very nice to my family, and very grateful to be on the PSA track committee. So that was very sad to learn. Now moving to maybe more bittersweet news, because she's just so nice and customer friendly. PSA's longtime customer service agent, Miss Irma Colindres, was provided amazing customer service at the Pinellas Park Transit Center for the past several years, is retiring this month after 25 years of treating our customers with great respect. Getting more positive, last week, PSA board member Gina Driscoll and I, along with Darden Rice and Bonnie Epstein, our mobility director, and she came as part of her leadership APTA participation. We're in Washington, D.C., as part of the APTA Legislative Committee conference, and had many positive meetings as well on Capitol Hill with our delegation and committee staffers about keeping our Uber and Lyft partnerships going, the ferry grant, emergency hurricane relief funding. And I'm happy to report that President Trump's proposed budget recommendations recommend no reductions in any transportation investment. Finally, looking ahead, I am excited about hopefully you all coming this Friday to our budget workshop. It's at 9 o'clock upstairs in the auditorium. Debbie kind of gave a little synopsis of it. Hopefully later today I'll send all of you reading material. I won't call it homework. It's not really homework. It's just to familiarize us with what's going to happen on Friday. And then last but not least, the most exciting news, and Commissioner Albritton already mentioned it, but on Monday and Tuesday, we are having two Clearwater Station construction open houses, these industry days, at the Pinellas County Palm Room on Chestnut Street, right in downtown Clearwater. Thank you to Pinellas County for providing us that room for free to have that. If any of you know of if anybody knows of any construction contractors that are interested in some work, we want really good competition when we bid this thing out. Please come to one of the open houses. Please tell them to come to the open house. They're from 10 to 1, Monday, June 2nd, and Tuesday, June 3rd, Pinellas County Palm Room. Al Burns tells me that we already have a very huge invite list of contractors, but the more the merrier. So please, thank you to Commissioner Albritton for coming to welcome, hopefully, a lot of contractors. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we're moving on to other business. Is there any other business to discuss? We need you, hit your button. Okay, Commissioner Scott.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Brad, I don't know what the process is for requesting a bus shelter, but I had a request from the Community Dental Clinic in Clearwater that is in the process of getting ready to move into a new facility right on Missouri at 1390 South Missouri Avenue, and there's a bus stop right in front of them. And the Community Dental Clinic serves populations that don't have access to dental insurance. So they offer dental care at either free or very reduced cost. And they're requesting, if it's possible, to get a bus shelter there, because I think it might even be on Route 52. I think it's Route 52. Anyways, they're expecting a lot of bus traffic, and if you had a tooth extracted and you're sitting out in the hot sun or in the rain, it's probably not a pleasant experience. So anyways, if there's a possibility of getting a bus shelter there, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll definitely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further requests in regards to other business, board member comments. Does any other board members have comments? Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank Commissioner Albritton for attending the Forward Pinellas meeting in my absence and illness. Thank you so much for providing the report today. I also wanted to thank Brad Miller, Darden Rice, and Jordan, I will not butcher his last name, for coming to the Oldsmar City Council meeting on relatively short notice to provide a presentation to the council and to our citizens about the Connected Community Bus Network, which I think the visit was long overdue and it was very welcome. So thank you for taking the time to come up to Oldsmar on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock and waiting through a significant number of agenda items prior to being able to provide your presentation. It was very helpful. I appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Driscoll.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
For once.
Any other comments? Seeing none, our next meeting is June 25th at 9 a.m. And thank you for your participation in comments today. This meeting is now adjourned.